people will be able to help motivate, inspire, or maybe put some people in the right direction. So Olivia is very passionate about helping women, divorced women, with their financial literacy and making sure that they are safe and well once they are out of these relationships. Welcome, Olivia. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So Olivia, tell me what got you into this? Because when you were in school, I'm assuming that 15-year-old Olivia wasn't thinking, I'm going to help divorced women. What was the plan?
Actually, you say 15, and that it's like a whole trajectory. So the last 10, 15 years of going back, I used to be in a very high net worth, ultra high net worth family. And I saw at that age the devastation of divorce on the mother who was a stay-at-home mom who could not really recover the way we would have hoped in a divorce because of the financial relationship and resources that she had. So you say that, but it started there. I went into finance a few years later in school, and out of school got into really wealth management, helping the rich get richer. And it just so happened, I kept the last few years having women come to me who were just divorced, and they wanted, they were referred from other friends who worked with me. But the thing is I was in wealth management, helping create models and portfolios and plans and retirement plans for 30 years out. And I have to tell you, they did not need a retirement plan for 30 years from now. They needed someone to help them with the devastation of the divorce, what to do next, how to actually work with their finances because they've stayed at home. They've never budgeted. They don't know how to buy a house. They don't know what a credit score is. They don't know what to do with the credit card. So that's how the long story, how I got into this is, I guess it would be about a year ago, I got serious about forming that niche because of all these women who really needed my help day to day. They didn't need that retirement plan. And so I broke off and started my own firm just to help them because I couldn't do wealth management, retirement planning, investment planning, education planning, insurance planning, and all of the other things and really give them what they needed. So started my own firm just to help them.
Oh, I love that. And what is something that keeps coming up time and time again? Because I hear you when you're saying that, there's a lot of women that are completely clueless about how to buy a house and what their credit score and stuff like that is. Because I guess, for a certain generation of women that power has been taken away from them just because that's the dynamics of families we're maybe used to. And I suppose that's changing as well. Mm-hmm. But, what kind of things should women that aren't, a bit of advice maybe for women who aren't divorced and hopefully never will be, but what should they be taking a little bit more notice of within their finances?
Great question. So I work with women post-divorce for just the day-to-day, helping them get back on their feet. And then I also work during divorce, really advocating with their divorce attorney and their mediator, or whoever they are working with their divorce professionals to help them make sure they're set up financially successful and they're not taken advantage of with everything. So when you're talking about this, it's pre-divorce. And that's the question I get a lot is, how am I going to survive? How am I going to maintain my lifestyle? And what do I need to do to prepare? So I think that if I'm interpreting your question, that's really what you're asking. And that's asked all the time. The biggest piece of advice I can give anyone, it doesn't matter what country you're from, is you have to be in the conversation no matter how intimidating that can be. So if you're not even thinking of getting divorced, or you are thinking of getting divorced, you need to take a little bit of control and understand your financial picture, whether that be as simple as, I just need to know where all the accounts are, and am I listed on those accounts, and what am I invested in? Those are big questions that I think will take weeks of your time if you've never done it before on your own. But asking the right questions is really important. And I can give some tips on who to ask and what to do next. But go right ahead if you have any other questions along those lines first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is the biggest question, isn't it? It's what do I ask for? Because, you don't know what you don't know. And money is a scary one. We all understand money in, money out, but we don't really understand what happens to it in between, or where it's maybe going when it's going out, if it's for investments, or, what you've signed, because a lot of the times, a husband and wife have to sign together for something. And what are you liable for? What have you actually signed away? Because you're presumably you would be in a loving relationship at that point when you're married, that you say, yeah, I'll sign the dotted line. You're obviously got my best interests at heart, but it's not until down the line that's obviously going to come untangled. It's so on your website, do you have a resource there where people can actually see some of those questions that they should be asking?
Yes, on my website, so summerhillwealth.com, there's a tab that is all about resources, and it's all geared towards women during and post-divorce. And then there's a ton of sheets and checklists that you'll really, no matter where you are, everyone needs to know these things before they contemplate the divorce past, where they're going. They really should get the foundation of just the organization. And I know that this conversation is not the most fun, but if you can be a little bit on the educated part of where you are in that financial world, it's going to be a lot easier whether you stay together for another 20, 30, 40 years, or you do get divorced and you go through that process if you know what's going on. And a way, just to throw it out there, a way to do that if you're intimidated, scared, if you don't know how to ask your husband, let's say, you can talk to your accountant or your financial planner. And a lot of the women I work with, they've never really sat in the meetings. And just when you do that, make sure that they might tell your spouse, like, hey, your wife's asking about accounts. So if you can be open and honest and communicate with your significant other, if you feel safe enough to do that, that's the best place to start. And then get that third party, that professional, to help you with your finances with your spouse. Whether you're in a great relationship or not, just educate yourself the best you can.
Yeah, it's very much prevention over cure, even with this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to have to deal with it once the divorce has been served. You want to deal with it way before.
If you can, yes.
I think it's a massive issue. We talked a little bit offline before we went live about the situation in Australia, and something that really upsets me is the fact that we've got superannuation here, which is like a retirement fund, and a lot of women don't have a very big superannuation fund, because it's generally women take the time off to look after children, etc. Superannuation in Australia hasn't been around forever. So my generation, it's been around since we've been in the working world, but not for everyone. So if you're 50 or 60, it wouldn't have been. What we're seeing is that we've got a massive rise of women who are 50 plus who are divorced and are homeless. That's the rising of people that are homeless are women. Well, they're not elderly, but older women. And that's just absolutely heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you that we have got that issue. And I would assume that there's a similar situation in America as well.
Yes. And hopefully laws, regulations are changing that, because that is such an issue. And here in the States, what the biggest recommendation is, one, talk to a divorce attorney about your options if you were the stay-at-home mom. So hopefully in Australia or wherever someone's listening today, if they're about to think about this, use your resources. Go to whatever website that you feel comfortable with that is all about your state or your country's laws around how to actually survive post-divorce if you're not with someone anymore. Because in the US, there is actually 10 years if you're with someone. So if you were married, let's say 9 years and 10 months before you file for divorce, the biggest thing you can do to protect yourself is just stay married. Don't file for those 2 more months if possible. Obviously, safety reasons different. But if you can, because then you're actually in tune to get a portion of the Social Security, is what we call it, in their retirement. So there's some things and loopholes for any different country. Go to the resources online, talk to the right people, listen to podcasts, make sure you're educated in some capacity. Even though I know it's not a fun conversation, you can have more power going into it if you know a little more.
Or watch Veronica Mars, because I actually know about that loophole because of an episode of Veronica Mars.
Okay, yes, sure.
Just when you said that, I was like, that sounds like an episode of Veronica Mars.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there.
It's another great resource. Okay, Olivia, I want to know a little bit more about you because the work that you do is fantastic. You're, we had a really great chat before we came live as well. Like you're really easy to talk to, which I think is really important considering the kind of work that you're doing. But what else does Olivia do? What else makes up Olivia?
So over the last decade of being in finance and helping people with their finances, the last few years of really getting into charitable giving and philanthropic giving, that was actually the avenue I thought I would go into as a just profession. So I actually am highly educated and am an expert within the philanthropic giving portion of finance as well. But I ended up going the divorce route for women because I know that there's a big need, and charitable giving, that's just, again, really wealthy people giving back and me helping them with their tax portions and saving them even more money if I can and giving it to the right places. But that's a passion on my personal life. So who am I in a personal way is I actually am right now training for an Ironman. I don't know if that's a familiar term. It's a triathlon. So that
a big Ironman here as well, down in
Yeah, I have 9 more months until the start of my first one. And so I'm actually raising money by training for it to give back to Savvy Ladies. It's a New York firm, a nonprofit that gives women education and finances so they can call for free resources for any time. So if anyone wants to write that down, Savvy Ladies, if you call and you have any questions about your finances, you can talk to a certified financial planner like myself. And we're there just pro bono, helping out other women. And we're all experts that are on that hotline as a volunteer. So I'm trying to raise money for that. That's something that I'm, wrapping my personal brand of loving charities and loving philanthropic work with my business, because now I'm promoting that as, hey, if you want to help me help support this charity and help me raise more money while I train for a really grueling, extremely hard race. So
that's incredible. Yeah. Well done you on both parts. I love that you're raising money for Savvy Women, but also an Ironman that's big.
Yes.
Now, anyone who's listening in Australia, I know in Western Australia in particular, we have something similar to Savvy Women, and it's called Financial Toolbox. So if you Google that, you'll be able to find some more information, which is very similar, which might be more Australian based, because I know we've got people on both sides of the pond listening. That's fantastic. So the Ironman, 9 months, oh gosh, it seems like it's far away, but if you told me I was doing an Ironman in 9 months, I think I'd cry, because wouldn't be able to do that. What kind of training schedule have you got for that? And also during lockdown, because I know it's not as open as it is here in Western Australia for you.
Well, for me, I train outdoors all year round. So I haven't been affected with my training schedule because I can either train outdoors by myself, and basically for me, it's just running a lot of miles or bike riding a lot of miles or swimming a lot of laps. So I can do a lot of that outdoors by myself, or I can go and do my indoor training in my house. So I'm very fortunate in that aspect. It's right now I'm at 9 to 10 hours a week training. So it's quite mild. That's not hard. I can, take a rest day. And then in a few months, I will change a lot of my little eating habits and a lot more training. So I'll get up to probably 12 to 13, maybe 14 a week. But I'm keeping it simple. So I'm not trying to overload or do something crazy. And I think that goes for life in general, is keeping it really mediocre and in moderation. So I'm not changing my lifestyle extreme. I'm just moderating it a little bit and making it a little harder to reach a better goal.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually what lessons you've learned from training, because I know that this is your first Ironman, but I presume you've done other races. And
yes.
What lessons have you learned that have actually helped you with your business as well?
I've always loved the thought of time management. I think people complain a lot about not having enough time in the day. And I have to tell you, everyone has the same amount of time in the day, and you can fit in stuff that's important to you. So whether that's just someone listening today who is about to go through divorce, maybe just 5 minutes of journaling and taking 5 minutes for you in the morning. I know that sounds insanely hard. A lot of the days it might be, but just trying to be selfish a little bit throughout the week and knowing that you have the time to do it. You do. Everyone does. So for me, I don't have more time in the day than anyone else, and I'm still doing these things because I fit in what's important to me. And I think a lot of people aren't as as self-care, I think is so important. I know that's a big buzzword right now, but I really do. I mean, especially wrapping back into my business is all about divorce. And I really think trying to communicate with your spouse and trying to make your relationship better, and maybe going to a therapist so that you don't get divorced and you really work on your relationship. Or if you're in divorce, self-care, taking time for yourself, any of that stuff I think is really important. So I'm a big
100%.
advocate for it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, as women, we always look after everyone else first. Children come first, husbands, etc. Generally speaking, I know there's exceptions to everything, and you really have got to fill your cup first to be able to help others. You really do.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's absolutely imperative. Yes.
Yes. And I think my camera has just turned itself off. That's all right. You can still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you perfectly. Nothing cut out.
Great. No, never mind. We'll just go with that then. Yeah, so that's put me off a little bit. So here you go. I'm not used to this thing's not working on me. This is a lesson for me as well. Charge your camera. So anything else that you want to add as to what people can be doing to help before they come to you, or like what situation should they be in when they come to you? What do they need to bring?
That's a great question. So I think the first and foremost thing is, no matter where you think you are, really taking that time to understand what you want out of life, and talking to either a therapist or friends and family are great, but they're not always the best resource because they might not know professionally what you're going through and what you actually need to get through it. So actually going to a professional. So first off is the therapist or someone in that professional realm, wherever you think it might be, maybe a life coach, whoever. And then really understanding yourself more, preparing yourself by talking to a divorce attorney or a mediator, if that's the route you're going to go. And I'm in the financial world, so that's also a good first stop, is seeing, okay, hey, I might be contemplating a divorce. What is something that we need to actually get started with that? So asking the questions, talking to the right people, and really taking care of yourself. Another thing on my podcast that I just talked about for a while, so I'll make it brief here, is knowing your values. So a lot of women, as you said, they're very much taking care of other people. They're not taking time for themselves, and they really don't have an identity for themselves just as an individual. And so what I like to do with clients is really help with the values and listing out, there's about 50 different ones that we go over, and breaking it down. After about 30 minutes, we get down to top 5 values of that individual as a woman, as a female, as a person, not as just a mother, not as a spouse, not as a best friend, but as who they are. And that's going to help guide them if you get to your top 5 values of, okay, who am I? What do I want in life? Because a lot of times we don't have that identity down because we're taking care of so many other people. So I think that might be a good thing to do, that exercise, is just getting to know your values and you first, and talking to professionals.
I think that's really important. I mean, that's something that, when you start a business and you're in the entrepreneurial world, people tell you to do, and it's something that we spend a lot of time on. You should be doing that in your personal life as well. And marriage is a big thing. It's not, friends come and go, boyfriends, girlfriends come and go. But when you're in a marriage, it's generally, you made a commitment for life at that point, and there's children involved, and there's other families. Everything's a bit more intertwined. That trying to disconnect yourself from that is difficult, especially if it's if it's 1 year in, it might be less difficult. You might still remember who you were before the marriage, but if you've been married 20, 30 years and this is what you're facing, that must be horrendous, really, really difficult.
Absolutely. And a lot of my clients, the market that I'm seeing currently is 45 to 55 years old, women, affluent women, and they've not had a different lifestyle for so many years, and they're taking care of children still. And it's really, it can be ripped away if you don't do something about it. And a lot of the times there's no action taken because of the intimidation during the divorce process. So really, I mean, you're not alone. I think that's the number one thing you have to remember. People are going through this. You're not alone, and you can have support and help wherever you are. Just look online for someone close to you and really get to know who you are and what you can do to get to the next step in life.
Yeah, surround yourself with the right people and get the right support. It's so important. And I hope that if anyone is listening to this, that is a little bit unsure in the relationship, or maybe they're not even contemplating divorce at this point, but just aren't sure financially what's happening, and they've not got a handle over their family's finance. They maybe just know what's coming in and out of their own checking account. That, this is maybe the push that you need to go and ask those questions while things are still good. And if you are contemplating something that you're not happy, and it's a relationship you want to take you and your children out of, that you start asking these questions ahead of time just now, so that you are prepared for when you do need to leave.
Yep, absolutely. You said it perfect.
There you go. I might just take your job, Olivia.
You can, yeah, go right ahead.
No, I could never do what you do. I just love that you're in this space. And I know that there's lawyers and mediators and accountants and all sorts of service providers that do help with divorce and help lots of different people. But the fact that you actually specifically, you're very niched, you help women, and you've got a very clear goal as to why you're helping them and how you can help them, because their situation is different. And again, that's generalizing it, because I know there's lots of different situations for everyone, but you really are, niche down to helping a very select segment that have got a massive issue. And it's great, because when they come to you, you've probably dealt with, loads of other people going through the same thing. So rather than going and having to look for more examples, you've got them at hand. You know where to direct them, because it's what you're doing day in, day out. And I love that. I think that's super important.
Yep, I agree, especially with the network of people that I work with. So I am not an attorney. I am not a therapist. I am not a luxury realtor. So if someone needs to change a house, because you asked at the beginning, a lot of questions people have. And one that I see all the time from my clients is, can I keep the home? And so I have those trusted professionals in the network that I can send my clients to and feel comfortable with. So that's also really important, is if you find the right professional, they're going to help you find those other people, even your children's doctors, those people that are going to be that network for you to get to your new self in the future is really important.
Yeah, fantastic. I've put the social media links and your website links into the show notes, and I'll get you to tell people what they are as well afterwards. But what other resources do you have? You mentioned you've got the podcast. What else can they come to find from you?
So on my website with Summerhill Wealth, there's the resource tab, and it has a lot of different things like books that are really imperative to read if you're going through divorce, and other podcasts that are all about divorce. So it's not just mine. Mine's very specific. And so I'm talking to a very specific crowd. So if there's something else that you're looking for within divorce and you're at a different stage in life, really, there's a few of them that I have on there. And then I think for a lot of people who might be listening that are attorneys and CPAs, I have my LinkedIn, which is helpful as well. And those are the resources right now that I really utilize a lot and help people with.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, the website where you find the podcast is a good one, because I know podcasts can be a very intimate thing where you can go and you can listen and you can get some of that advice that you need, whereas social media is a bit scary. I know if it's something like domestic abuse, or you're going through a divorce, or weight loss, anything like that, something that's a little bit personal, you don't want to share it for the world to see, and you don't want to be commenting and finding those resources. So I'm so happy that you have that podcast as something you can be in people's ears, so that they can actually get the help and advice that they need.
Yep. And it's discreet and confidential. That's really how I do my business. So I agree with you. Yeah. You don't need to comment and show your name on anything, because if you're going through a divorce and you haven't, thought to tell your spouse yet, you don't want them knowing you're commenting on a divorce blog, whatever you're on. So
yeah, 100%.
Yes.
So what's next for you, Olivia?
Well, at this point, the podcast is ramping up for 2021, and that's been just so much fun, having really sought after, really powerful, amazing people on to educate women within this realm of divorce. And then obviously the charity and chaining for the Ironman is a big one for me. And then sticking with just helping fewer women at a time, because I want to make sure I give everyone my time. So I'm actually at a wait list right now for my post-divorce work with women. And I'm going to keep it that way so that I only have this certain amount allotment. And I'm working with them and giving them my 120% attention. So unlike a lot of planners and advisors who take on everyone and then don't really spend time with them, I'm not doing that. So that's my goal, is just stick with what I'm doing. It's working.
More sometimes. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Now, we've mentioned
welcome.
your website and it's in the show notes and everything, so everyone should be fairly comfortable with where to find you. But one last time, tell them what to look for if they're looking for the podcast and the website.
So Spotify is the big one where my podcast is, and it's Divorce for Wealthy Women, and then summerhillwealth.com. So anyone who has any questions, just reach out, because I also have a really good resource network. So if I'm not a good fit for you because my niche is so just right in target market, is very specific, then I can always reach out to other people and get you in touch with who you might be a better fit for.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Olivia. I love chatting with you. And like I said, if anyone's listening and needs that little bit of support, there is amazing resources on Olivia's website.